listeners. Welcome to the next session.
An advice podcast for game masters seeking help with their next game session. I'm Adam Johns.
And I'm Alyssa Johns. One of these days, maybe it will be different people.
That would be pretty wild, right?
Wouldn't that be funny if suddenly it was like, I'm Matt Damon.
We got Matt Damon to come on our podcast.
That would be pretty awesome.
I'd be very impressed with us if we got Matt Damon to come on the podcast.
Matt Damon would never come on our podcast.
I wonder if he plays D&D.
I don't know. Henry, what's his face does though?
I could picture a lot of actors that play D&D, even if they're not necessarily vocal about it. Like, it seems like an actor-y thing to play D&D or some other RPG or whatever.
Oh, apparently Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, long before they were Jason Bourne and Batman, or even winning Oscars for screenplays, they were two couple of geeky kids playing D&D.
I mean, you look at it in like...
The two both love playing magic-wielding elves.
Goodwill Hunting or whatever. Like, they seem like they could be D&D players.
Mathematicians. Based
I
on
mean,
the movie.
only one of them's a mathematician in that movie.
And the other one's Batman.
Yeah.
I've watched it.
One of them's a mathematician, and the other one's Batman.
I've watched
and
that
also
movie.
Daredevil.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. All right. Let's get on with it.
Let's get on with it.
Hey, we have our next session help question comes from Majora's Descendant.
Hey, it's Majora's Descendant.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, Majora's Descendant.
We appreciate your questions.
Yeah.
Majora's Descendant says, I am making a campaign on an island world that I have named Tetra. I was wondering ways to make this island different than just another location on the Sword Coast. I just want to hear your thoughts for inspiration, like different rules or cool landscapes.
Well, I love Tetra as a name. I wonder if we can play up, like, why it's named Tetra.
Wasn't Tetra the name of Zelda in Wind Waker? Spoilers for Wind Waker.
Spoilers for this ancient game.
It's not ancient.
Yeah, how old is Wind Waker?
I don't want to look. 22 years ago.
Released 22 years ago.
Yes, but Tetra is the name of Zelda in Wind Waker. It makes sense. You're Majora's descendant, so Majora's Mask, Tetra. I love it.
I thought it meant something more than what it means.
What does it mean?
It means having 4 parts, like tetrahedron.
Well, you could play that up and have 4 different islands that make up Tetra.
That'd be pretty interesting. You could play up that it's just a big square.
The 4 different islands of Tetra are the 4 seasons. They are locked magically in 4 seasons. So there's the winter island and the fall island and summer and spring.
It could be one island, but broken into 4 quadrants.
Okay.
And each of them is a different season.
Yeah.
So you could do different islands, but you could also do like one island where it's each quarter of the island is broken into a different season. That's pretty fun.
What if the island was actually built inside the skeleton of a long dead gigantic creature?
Sure, like Nowhere.
Like Nowhere from
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Of the Galaxy. So like maybe the cliffs, and it's all been grown over, but you can see the cliff faces are actually the rib cage, and there's like waterfalls coming down from the rib cage of this giant creature, and maybe the capital of the city or whatever on the island is in the brain. The skull.
Yeah.
The most defensible part.
That does make me think, like, I've always thought it would be fun to do an island where it's basically sheer cliffs all the way around the island, with like one very narrow entrance, like fjord-like entrance. And then the actual island itself is a big basin. So the cliffs like go up. They're basically like a big mountain range that surrounds the entire island, but with sheer cliffs. And then the inside of the island is a big basin of like jungle and brush and stuff like that.
What if you go a la Pirates of the Caribbean and have it be a bunch of shipwrecked ships that have just been lashed together to create a floating island? So like you never know where Tetra's going to be.
Yeah.
At any given time. But if you can find it, great treasure might be there.
Sure, yeah. I also like, then you can really play up the pirates thing.
Oh, yeah, pirates are always fun.
Yeah.
Yar.
I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk about this, but I'll talk about it anyway. We created a campaign that never got quite released for Critical Core that was all about a floating island, a flying island that floated in the air, and anybody on the island, the whole island was like an underwater scape.
Oh, but floating.
Yeah, the island itself had like a magical effect on it that caused people to basically be buoyant like they are underwater, but while in the like area of the magic effect. So basically, even though it was air, you floated around like you were underwater, and all the plants and creatures, and even including the humanoids, were all sort of semi-underwater creatures and semi-underwater plants.
Crazy. What if it is actually a low-flying cloud that's stuck at ocean level that you can walk on?
I was going to say, otherwise, I think that's just fine.
I think that's just fine.
I think it's just...
You created mist.
You created...
Seafoam.
You created London. Except without the buildings or roads.
Okay, what would Tetra have that's unique about it, other than, like, we're talking about the island, but what about Tetra?
Yeah. Like, what is a culture? Or
yeah.
I mean, I do love the idea of playing up the fours thing, right? And kind of leaning into that. So maybe you have, like, there are 4 different distinct cultures that live on Tetra. You could go with, like, different fantasy races or species. You know, there's a very specific species of dwarves and a very specific species of elves or something that all kind of occupy Tetra. And maybe they all work together. Maybe they kind of live in harmony. Or maybe they are at odds with one another. Both those are pretty interesting in different ways.
Maybe there is a race of people that live on the island. They all live on the outskirts of the island, and they do not go in the center, because in the center is some sort of creature or mythical thing that they revere as like a deity or something. And maybe they're sacrificing themselves to it, or who knows what kind of religion they've come up with for the thing in the center of the island that they're scared of. And maybe it's just like a mimic.
Like a single mimic or something?
This is like one mimic.
Yeah. You could go with like some type of giant plant species. Or like a sort of plant creature that lives underground and sprouts plants above it. So like all the plants on the island all belong to this one creature. It's just
one plant?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty good, because you could have it feel like it's different encounters with different kinds of plants, and then eventually you figure out that it's just one organism.
Yeah.
And you have to like figure out a way under the island to defeat it.
Yeah. That could be pretty interesting. Some part of this is a little bit defined by, like, is Tetra a place where people go all the time? You know, is it like a common, everyone knows about it, it's just right out there. There it is, that island. Or is it hidden, mysterious, maybe people know about it but have never been there, or no one ever comes back, or like thinking about those, you know, how does the world, Majora's Descendant, as you're thinking about this island, how does the world think about this island? What do the player characters know about the island just by the very nature of, like, they've been around? Have they heard of this island, or is it completely unknown, you know?
And you can play up the rumor system like we've talked about before. You can go around and ask your players, hey, what is a thing that your character has heard about the island of Tetra?
Yeah.
And then you can use any of those, incorporate any of them in. And even if you only incorporate one thing in, they're going to go, oh, that was the thing that I incorporated, that I said, that was mine.
And I like that, you know, give and take with the players when you're doing, you know, rumors or something like that for this kind of place. They can come up with something and you can go, yeah, yes, it's a dinosaur island. And also, everybody has trained dinosaurs. Like, it's basically the Flintstones, where dinosaurs have replaced, like, most technology and most like household chores and stuff. Like, you can play off of each other and build on each other's ideas, which is always a lot of fun for this kind of situation.
It could also be the opposite. It could be an empty ghost town island. Like, there's nothing that you can see alive on this island, and you have to figure out why.
Yeah, what happened?
Maybe there's a single spire in the middle of the island, like a lighthouse that's gone out. The players have to go fix it. Like, they've been hired to go fix it or something, and they discover it's a ghost town. Literal ghosts. I mean, pirate ghosts.
If you wanted to get into some, like, interesting intrigue here, this could be related to, you could do something similar to like Firefly, the movie,
Oh,
where there is a spire in the middle, and everybody in the whole island is dead, and you discover that like people died instantly all at once. And as you kind of uncover all the clues to it, you realize that the spire was built by the kingdom. And this whole thing was kind of an experiment the kingdom did that resulted in basically killing everybody on the island all at once because they're basically trying to control them or trying to, trying to use them as a magical ingredient, which would be kind of along the lines
Ooh.
of Full Metal Alchemist if you haven't seen it.
this got dark.
Spoilers. But yeah, I mean, you could go like a really dark mystery, right?
Or you could go like the Doctor Who space whale.
Oh
You wanna
yeah,
go dark. Yeah.
but yeah, you could do something. I mean, this would be a great place for
Giant lion turtle.
yeah, for like the giant turtles or whatever to play a role here.
Yeah. Walking along the bottom.
Yeah.
Without any more to go off of, I hope that we've given you some good nuggets of ideas. Feel free to email me back and let us know if any of these are the direction you want to go in, or if you've come up with something else. We'd love to hear it. All right, moving right along, we have another next session help question from IllOven3506.
Ill oven.
IllOven. Sounds like McLovin.
It's McLovin's ill oven.
It's a very sick oven. It needs to be repaired.
It does sound like it. An ill oven.
Or maybe it's ill, like cool.
Maybe it's a really cool oven, but that would also be kind of sick for an oven.
Yeah, because they're supposed to be hot.
Yeah, they're supposed to be a hot ill oven. You got to get your heat up.
All right. IllOven asks, my player wants their character to get captured in sort of a noble sacrifice to save the rest of the party from the big bad evil guy. How do I do this without forcing a failure on the party? I don't want to force a failure on the party, but I'm having a kind of weird situation where one of my players wants to have their character sacrifice themselves for the rest of the party. This is something that me and her have been building up to since the start of the campaign, leaving little hints like, yeah, this guy's gonna die, but subtle enough that it would still be a surprise. So we want him to get captured in front of the party in a way that looks like noble sacrifice, but I don't want to make a situation where I'm sort of forcing the players to fail, you know? I just want some advice on how to do this because I love the idea. The two of us want this moment to be the end of the first act of the campaign and want it to be a surprise to the rest of the party. I'm still a fairly new DM, so I'm getting used to a lot of stuff.
So I have done this several times where a player sacrifices their character, maybe because they're done, they want to move on, or they're leaving the group and they want an epic ending, or where some for some various reason where this character is no longer going to be a part of the campaign.
Or in my case, you gave my character the choice.
I did,
Mm-hmm.
and I've done that a few times as well. Where I've set things up and then provided the opportunity for the player to make a choice about what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Now, every time that you do this, there's a little bit of head nod that you need from the players. You can't really set this up very easily without having a little bit of buy-in from all the players. Now, the buy-in part can be a part of the surprise. So you can recognize that, like, I don't need all the players to know everything that's going to happen in advance and know, hey, this player is going to step away way ahead of time. But when I get down to the moment in which it happens, usually it helps if I make it clear that this is what's going on now. This is a narrative moment where there is nothing you can do to stop it from happening.
Right, because otherwise the players are going to fight tooth and nail, use everything they can,
right,
and maybe unknowingly steal the noble sacrifice moment.
Now, I have done it the other way, where I've created the circumstance and I let the players fight tooth and nail to try to prevent it from happening and still make it happen. But in order to do that part, it requires that your players have the kind of buy-in for your kind of storytelling, which needs to include not just rolling dice for everything. So a huge part of this is the idea that you're going to take control of the narrative in a way that the players cannot roll dice to solve. And that's really kind of what you're asking for in this case, IllOven. You're asking for the opportunity to set up a circumstance where it isn't dice that are going to decide what happens next. It's you. It's you, the game master, who decides what happens here. And whether or not that you finagle that really, really well and set it up, perfectly, the room happens to be oriented the right way, that player's standing in the right spot, the floor gives way, that's the only player who falls through, or everyone else falls through, that's the only player who doesn't and gets captured by the big bad evil guy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always going to be you creating the scenario for it. It wasn't a random chance to see who fell through the floor and who didn't.
Right.
It was you.
You're going to have to railroad a little bit.
Exactly.
But your players will also trust you.
Yeah. So it also requires that you create that, you have that trust with your players. And if need be, I recommend that you, instead of trying to constantly double down to like, that's the way it went, or sorry, this is just how it's going, be honest with them. If you have players that are pushing back as a player, not as a character, but going, that's totally unfair, I rolled a 20, whatever, then be honest with them and say, I'm trying to set up a big finale. And they'll understand that. They will give you that trust and be like, oh, okay, this is a story thing. Mm-hmm. That's what we're doing now. So be willing. Sometimes game masters can make the mistake where they're trying to set up a really interesting, fun, engaging story scenario, and they find that all they get from the players is pushback of their their autonomy that they want to have in this circumstance. And I find that it's a lot easier, both on the players and on the game master sometimes, to just be honest and say, you guys are going to have lots of chances to fight back. This is a turning point story moment, and I'm setting it up so that you can have an epic moment here.
Right. And if need be, you could also say, this is this player's moment.
Yeah.
And you don't have to tell them that they're going to die. You can just say, this is predetermined this person's moment.
Yeah.
Let's play it out.
Now, that being said, I have done this a few different ways. One of my favorites was a moment where we had a cave. They were inside of like a big cave, and the big cave they defeated the big bad evil guy, and the big cave was collapsing. And one of the players saw it as the clear setup that it was, and basically held open the door frame for everybody else to make their way through. And then we had the door frame collapse on them right as the last person went through. And in this case, it wasn't being captured. It was they wanted their leaving the group to be them sacrificing themselves, and also to be somewhat mysterious. Like, we didn't really know if they made it or not.
Right. And just to point out, 11 isn't saying that the player gets captured.
I'm just giving an example for collapsing room's a really good one for this. Falling through the floor. The goal here, in a lot of senses, is that you're trying to separate the players from each other, right? You're trying to create a moment where they're not together in some way. And even if you're doing something like a capture, that's still kind of the same thing. You still kind of have to create the moment that this player has done something where they get left behind and potentially captured, so that everybody else can escape.
Right. It could be the moment where they're like, you go ahead, I'll distract them.
Right. But I will tell you, that never works.
Right.
No party ever lets
one person
stay behind and distract them, knowing that they're sacrificing themselves. The best times where this works is where you, as the game master, have made the final decision. That is the cave collapses now. Mm-hmm. I made that decision. I set it up so that the player could be the one there standing there holding the doorframe, but I'm the one who decides when the cave collapses.
What about Star Wars, where the what is that battle with Ewan McGregor and Qui-Gon Jinn, and the things come up and down, and they're separated from Darth Maul, and that whole thing?
Did you call him Qui-Gon Jinn?
Yeah. What's his name?
No, I like Qui-Gon Jinn. That's fantastic.
Now you have to tell me what it really is.
It's Qui-Gon Jinn, and it's old John Kenobi.
No. What is that battle? It's the battle where he dies,
Yes,
right?
you're talking about Duel of the Fates.
Duel of the Fates, yes.
Which is the song that plays during the battle where they fight against Darth Maul. Yes.
Yes, but there's things.
Yeah, there's those barriers.
There's barriers that come up that are preventing, and like maybe this character, if there are barriers, can push the characters on the other side of the barrier, separating themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a great, some kind of force field or something like that.
To make it a noble sacrifice, they have to be making it so the other players clearly have a way out.
Yeah, they have to make the choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think one of the hardest parts about noble sacrifices, and I've done this a couple of times where the player doesn't figure out that I'm trying to give them the opportunity for the noble sacrifice.
Yeah.
And then I keep having to present more and more circumstances where and I've had a couple of players who are like, oh, I really want to play this other character. I want my character to have a noble sacrifice. And we'll play like multiple sessions in a row where I'll be like, you guys are being chased. Somebody has to like stay behind and hold the door. And then the player who is the one who wanted to be noble sacrifice would be like, no, I've got a solution. We just do this. I've got some sovereign glue. We'll just put that on the door. Done.
Yeah. I have an immovable rod.
I have an immovable rod. I'll put that over there. And I'm like, okay.
Cool.
Well, it works.
Well, that's when you have a conversation with the character,
yes,
with the
that's
player
exactly
after.
what I did. But it was just so funny, like how much they were ready to problem solve instead of doing the noble sacrifice.
Right.
It's sort of like there's a line in I think the first Avengers movie, where Captain America claims that Iron Man would never make the sacrifice play, and Iron Man says, I would never have to. I would find another way.
Yeah, but then at the end, it's like you're the
does.
one who
Like,
always
times.
makes the noble sacrifice play.
Yeah, it's totally true.
Yeah, so flip flops.
So yeah, I would say at some point you're gonna have to railroad this a little bit. Be comfortable with that. That's okay. Nothing wrong with taking a little control of the narrative to make something exciting.
Use all of the weapons in your arsenal.
One of the things that I'll also say is a useful thing to keep in mind for this is I will put things in the game that I don't have players roll for. There's sometimes a philosophy in game mastering that the players get a chance to roll for everything. And I will absolutely have moments where the bad guy, grabs you by the neck and you don't get a roll. Bad guy is much more powerful than you. You don't get a roll in this case. The floor collapses. You don't get a roll. You're going down. You're falling through the floor. That's what's happening now. The ceiling collapses. You don't get a roll to not have ceiling collapse.
Sand is pouring down from the ceiling, filling the room.
There's no roll here. It is just what is happening.
Right.
And feel free. I think those are the kinds of circumstances that you want to be thinking about. What are the circumstances where I can justify there isn't a roll in this case? This is just a series of things that now happen to you that your character is more or less powerless to prevent.
Well, thank you, Ill Oven, for your question. I hope that helps. I want to hear about what this noble sacrifice ends up being.
I do love a good noble sacrifice, though.
It's good.
In a story, it's such a good turn and such a good moment.
Hey, I think we need to take a break.
Okay,
Break
let's
time.
go on a break.
And we're back.
Hey, we're back. Look at that.
Look at here.
look at us in this audio medium
That you can't
that
look
you're
at us.
listening to us.
Should we do video recording at some point?
No. But you know what we should do? We should do puppets of ourselves doing the podcast. Maybe Muppets.
Yes.
We'll make our own Muppets and then do a a video recording of us as Muppets doing the podcast.
If any listeners are actual puppet masters or puppet makers, please send me an email. That'd be great.
We're interested in some lookalike Muppets.
Hey, it's Ask a GM.
It's Ask Us, yeah.
This Ask a GM comes from Gourmet Cheese 01.
Ooh, I like gourmet cheese.
It's the first gourmet cheese.
Wow, the first one. I wonder what it was. Probably like a Gouda.
Everybody loves Gouda.
Everybody loves Gouda.
It had to have been something really stinky.
Yeah, probably like a really stinky French cheese.
Or maybe,
Blue
I mean,
cheese.
maybe the first cheese was accidental. So maybe it was like
Probably.
a
Like cheese curds or something.
Yeah, what am I thinking of? Not mozzarella. Is it mozzarella?
I don't know.
Gourmet Cheese says, "What should I include on a DM screen? I've been making my own DM screen and am curious what I should put on it. What information do you find you like to always have on hand? I have tons of space, so that is not an issue."
Okay, so I actually, the DM screens that I used to use and still occasionally use are DM screens that have slidable inserts. So they're plastic screens that basically you can put in a piece of paper with whatever you want on it, and you can change it out however often you want.
And the plastic sleeves are dry erasable.
They are, so we could draw on them with dry erase. I learned a few things. We Adam Davis and I used those screens for a long time with the intent that we would like constantly swap out, all sorts of different stuff. And what I learned in the process was I didn't ever want to swap anything out.
Yeah, well, once you learn where something is, it's kind of like a video game. You're like, this is where this always is.
I need the muscle memory.
I need to know where that is.
Yeah. The only two things that I ever had on a GM screen that I was like, this is useful and I like having it right here are, I like having blocks for the players at my table. And those blocks usually include their hit point max, their armor class, and then usually like their passive perception or something like that. Those are pretty handy. And I often use those if I can also write on them with a dry erase marker to keep track of player hit points. But I also found that I liked having a small sort of notebook-sized dry erase board that is also a place where I would keep track of hit points and initiative in the same place.
Okay.
Some people do initiative trackers on a GM screen. There's a couple of ways to do that. Some people do like clips across the screen, like across the top of the screen where everybody can see them, which is sometimes great. Some people do have like a pole coming off the screen, like sticking out of the top, and they do like clothespins on the pole to track initiative. So it's useful because then everybody can see it, so people can see where they are at in their own initiative. I always defaulted to just writing down my initiative on the whiteboard that I had behind the screen anyway, and I would track player and monster hit points in that same place.
So for me, I rarely used a DM screen. I had a very big 17-inch laptop that got very hot and old very quickly. But I would keep all of my notes on, what was it, OneDrive? And I would have a lot of notes there. But a lot of people like things that you personally don't remember that well. So like conditions, improvised names of NPCs. You could have a list of your NPCs on there. Like rules that you can't remember. You could have like, oh, right, this is the rule for grapple, and this is the rule for cover, and this is the rule. You could even have like your big bad monsters that you're going to use that session, and you could like have page numbers for your DM or your monster manual that you could have flagged already.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is on this page, or this is this condition, or whatever.
I like having conditions on there.
Yeah.
That's pretty handy.
Homebrew rules. Any rule that you made up that you need to remember.
Yeah.
That you're not going to find anywhere else.
Or just rules that keep coming up. Like you said, like, hey, here's grapple or whatever. But if you have a player that constantly wants to disarm people, you can be like, cool, I'm just going to put the disarm rule. You keep doing this. I'm going to put it right here.
And there are several different people and companies and games that have made their own DM screens that you can look at and copy and research. I will point out that Sly Fourish has the Lazy 5e cheat sheet that you could potentially look up, print out.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Sly Flourish's lazy DM guide. Yeah, that's an awesome way to go.
player stats, proficiencies, flaws, special items, random tables. I never liked random tables because they weren't random enough if they were printed out. I would always just go to a random table generator on my laptop.
Yeah. Although having something like the wild magic table,
Oh yeah.
if you have a wild magic sorcerer or something like that who's constantly using those, having that right there is pretty handy. Unfortunately, the wild magic table in 5th edition is not as fun and interesting as it was in previous editions.
One of the things that I always have at the top of my notes is the 5 senses. And the reason I have that on there is because it helps me remember to describe details. So you walk into this room, it smells musky. It's old. No one has entered this room in a long time. It's damp. You touch the wall and there is moss and lichen like building up all over the crevices. Like that, just having the 5 senses up on the top helps me improvise a lot better.
Yeah. Actually, this is a great point to say, especially if you're customizing your own DM screen, really think about like what are the things that help you the most when you're a game master. Like the 5 senses thing is a great suggestion for that. Whenever I do NPCs, I have a tendency to come up with like little accents and voices for the NPCs.
Oh yeah.
And I write down little reminders, either catchphrases or key phrases to help me get back into that NPC voice and accent. And being able to write down, like, here's the NPC name, here's my catchphrase, here's my key phrase for that NPC.
Or it could be like, here's the NPC name, French Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Then you kind of like, I can
whatever
remember.
note you need to be like, I'm French Dumbledore. We're French Dumbledore.
I don't want to do it. Do we have French listeners?
What would Dumbledore sound like?
Dumbledore.
I feel like that's just
Hermione.
from that puppet show. Dumbledore. I think leaning on what tools are going to be most useful. I obviously you're already trying to think of this, but leaning on what tools are going to be most useful for you as a game master. Like, what things do you find yourself looking up time and time again? And it might even be worthwhile to play a few sessions with just a blank DM screen and then write down the stuff where you go, I had to look this up. Oh, no, we had to stop the game so I could look this up. Like, that should go on your DM screen. Can I add one last thing about DM screens?
Yeah.
There are people who are doing, like, really functionally useful DM screens where it's got like a dice tower built into it and stuff like that.
Those are fancy.
They're very fancy. DM screens have gotten a lot fancier.
Back in my day, we used a file folder.
It was just a file folder. It was a folder from my class, from my math class. I put it right there. It said math on it.
I drew a picture of a dragon.
But I did it in class. My math teacher did not like it. Put it on the front of my DM screen anyway.
All right.
I don't really like... Every time I see those DM screens, all I can think is, what kind of a permanent setup must you have for your D&D game? Like, we got a room. It's a whole room with the table, and the DM screen stays there, and we use it once a week just for D&D for 2 hours.
Those are serious
We come
players.
and we play D&D in our D&D room. And otherwise, that room sits empty the rest of the time.
The gaming room is the new it's like
the
formal
posh
living room.
It is the posh D&D thing to do.
When you're in that room, is it hard to find things? Like, do you have to like search?
I don't understand.
Search everywhere around the room? Search the room? Do you have to search the room, Adam?
Bump, bump, bump. Search the room.
What you gonna do when you search the room? Search the room.
I can't believe it.
This is the Nether scroll of Azumar.
Oh. You are never gonna find this thing.
Wow.
Is it rare?
It is legendary.
Oh yeah.
It's from the Candlekeep Mysteries.
Oh, fun.
I don't know them very well.
Yeah, well, they're a mystery.
That's, you know what? Got to keep your candles a mystery.
Sorry, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm sorry for all the jokes.
It's late at night for us right now.
At night.
We don't usually record at night because of this is what happens.
because you get this.
You get this. I'm gonna have to do so much editing.
Yeah.
It'll be great. So the legendary scroll of the Nether Scroll of Azumar says, unlike most scrolls, a Nether Scroll of Azumar is not a consumable magic item. It takes 30 days of concentrated study, at least 8 hours per day, to attempt to understand this scroll. After completing this study, you must make a DC 25 Intelligence Arcana check. If this check fails, you take 16 D10 psychic damage, and you can attempt the check again after another 30 days of concentrated study.
Jeez.
When you succeed on the check, you gain the following benefits. Your intelligence score increases by 2 to a maximum of 22. Once you gain this benefit, you can't use this scroll to increase your intelligence again. You gain advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. When you gain the scroll's benefits, a stone golem magically appears in an unoccupied space within 60 feet of you and acts as your ally. If you die, the golem turns to dust.
What happens if the golem dies?
It doesn't say.
This is cool.
Isn't it crazy?
It's pretty crazy. Can you imagine looking at one piece of paper for 30 days, 8 hours a day?
8 hours a day to study. Like,
Be like, I
what if I
really
flip
gotta
it over?
understand this piece of paper.
What if I make it into origami? It's a brooch. It's a tie.
8 hours per day. That's a lot of studying this one piece of paper.
Now, it doesn't say it has to be all at once. So my thinking is like they get the scroll of Nether of Azumar, and like once a session, you go, okay, tomorrow I'm just going to spend 8 hours studying the scroll. This will be my third day of studying.
You're right. It doesn't technically say it all at once. It does say 30 days of concentrated study.
Right, but
You might interpret that to say
In
you
a
need
row.
to sit down and spend 30 days
spend
studying
a month
this.
doing
Yeah.
this. But I was thinking you could break it
but
up.
you're right. It doesn't say continuous concentrated study or
Right.
anything.
This is a long, slow grind achievement to get a golem, some extra intelligence, and advantage on saving throws against spells and magical effects.
The 16d10 psychic damage is a tremendous amount of damage.
Yeah, you have to be ready to get this DC 25 intelligence check out of the way,
Yeah.
or have a healer right there.
The average of 16d10 psychic damage is 80 damage. And it would be totally possible. I mean, the max would be 160 damage that you could take. So it is a lot of damage, especially for like, you presume that you're probably a wizard who's doing this.
Probably.
And you have to pass a DC 25 Arcana check.
Right. So that means you have to roll a 20 and have a 5 intelligence.
I mean, if you have a +5 intelligence, that means you already have a +20,
Yeah, blah, blah, blah,
a
blah.
20 score anyway,
I was trying to make it fun.
which is getting you close to that maximum of 22, which is pretty good. I like it. This is a cool item.
Definitely something to give your players as my thinking, a slow grind. I don't think this is this is the MacGuffin. This is the thing.
No,
you
I
need.
don't. Yeah, I think it would be a cool, end of a dungeon gift for a character. And then potentially you go, hey, can we take a break in this town for a month?
Right.
And he goes, yeah. You spend the entire month studying, doing nothing else. Roll your check.
Well, and then you can say, here's what the other people did.
Oh, yeah.
during
Here's
this month.
what else did everybody else do for a month?
Yeah. So you could have a flash forward. I was wondering, like, could you have like a room in a dungeon? You have a skeleton there with the scroll, like it's looking at it, like it's been studying it for so long that it died, and you get the scroll and you touch the skeleton, and its knowledge passes into you, or something or maybe you have to fight the skeleton for the knowledge, and you've cut 10 days off of your time, or something like that.
Oh, I see. Like as a way to shorten it.
Yeah, you could be like, he had the scroll and he was studying and he was almost there.
Yeah.
And if you
I was just thinking he probably got killed by the 16d10 psychic damage.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
He finished his 30 days and then didn't pass his check.
Dear diary, I'm finally ready to read the scroll.
I finally understand the scroll, I think.
I think. See you on the other side. Ooh.
You could really lay it on thick where the diary then goes into great detail about, like, once I've got my extra 2 points of intelligence in my golem, I'll finally be able to save my parents' farm.
Oh my God.
And I'll be able to return back home to my loving wife and and the children that she's been taking care of for
this past month
while I secure our family's financial future.
Oh my gosh. That's awful. Here's what I would name my stone golem.
It occurs to me now, only now, that I forgot to give them the location of the cave in which I would be studying.
Don't worry, I'll definitely pass
but I'll
this
definitely
test.
pass it.
Terrible. This is why we don't record at night.
Yeah, I guess that's probably true. This does seem like something straight out of like an early Baldur's Gate game or something like that. I think it's pretty fun. I wonder how strong the golem is. So Stone Golem, I just looked it up, is pretty strong, actually.
Enough to plow the farm
It's
of
a
that guy?
CR10 monster.
Oh, goodness gracious.
So, yeah.
You come out of the cave and you're like on the shoulders of the stone golem.
It has 22 strength and 20 constitution. This thing is strong. It's very powerful.
How many hit points?
It's a large construct. It has 178 hit points.
Ooh.
And 17 AC. It's got a bunch of immunities and
Well, it's made out of stone.
It's made of stone, yeah. It has dark vision out to 120 feet. Yeah, it's awesome. This would be great to have if I was a wizard with 22 intelligence.
But I'm assuming you can control it. It acts as your ally, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But now you have to keep a stone. Hey, Ralph, stay outside. We're gonna go in this inn.
You're gonna name your stone golem Ralph?
Yeah.
You're not gonna name him.
What would you name him? You try and come up with a name.
Grant.
Grant for granite. Rocky.
I'm gonna name him Rocky.
The boulder.
Yeah.
Can the stone golem talk?
It says it understands the languages of its creator but can't speak. But maybe it could give you a look.
Oh.
It's a disapproving look.
Yeah.
Like you can say, "How do you like the name Rocky?" And it frowns.
It rolls its eyes.
It rolls its eyes.
All right, Ralph it is.
Ralph it is.
Okay, scroll, Nether scroll of Azumar. We give it
2 stone golem thumbs up.
Yeah, if your players are willing to do the work, they too can have a stone golem. Could 2 people study it at the same time? Because it's not a consumable magic item.
They'd have to alternate.
Would they?
Who is getting the 8 hours? Like,
what if they
one
were
of them
both,
could do the night shift.
What if they were like, okay, looking over each other's shoulders?
No, it's concentrated study. No one can concentrate with someone looking over their shoulder like that for 8 hours.
Okay, 2-headed monster.
Oh yeah, I like where you're going. 2-headed Etten.
2-headed Etten.
Yeah.
Studying the scroll. Do they get 2 stone golems?
Can
or
they
one?
split up the psychic damage?
Oh, that's a good point.
Can each of them study for 4 hours?
Could each of them get a small stone golem?
Layer, like not a large,
a 30-foot,
not a regular, like a little tiny one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Two tiny ones that they can combine into one big one.
If I had a player who got this item and then fiddled around with it in any number of goofy ways, I would totally roll with the punches on it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you're the goofy DM.
That's true. That is my official title.
That's your new tagline. There's the lazy DM.
I'm the goofy DM.
There's the angry DM. You're the goofy DM.
Yeah, there you go.
Yuck. Hey, if you want to ask your own question and have us be ridiculous, you can.
We'll record your question at night.
At night.
You get more of this.
You know what? You could request it.
In your question.
Yeah. Hey, only record this at night.
Yeah.
Because we want you to be ridiculous. You could go to the website, nextsessionpodcast.com. That is where you will find a form to submit your question. Someone pointed out that it didn't work very well on mobile, and I still haven't fixed it.
Yep.
So go to the desktop version of the site
Yeah.
until I fix it.
But we might fix it. By the time you're listening to this,
We will.
it might be fixed. But you can also find us on Facebook at The Next Session.
And on Instagram at Next Session Podcast.
So I'm Adam Johns.
And I'm Melissa Johns.
Tune in next time, and we'll help you prep for your next session.
Maybe.
Bye-bye.